With TV47, we are now delighted to speak exclusively to Maria Sarungi. She is a Tanzanian activist who was arrested and abducted just over 12 hours ago here in Kenya, and she joins us from Nairobi. Hello, Maria, how are you doing?
I am okay, and I'm lucky to be alive. Thank you very much for having me.
Brilliant. Could you just please, in a nutshell, briefly describe to us the events surrounding the situation and the scenario that you experienced yesterday?
Yes, the abduction actually happened in front of a salon in a place called Chaka Place, whereby I had called rider, I would call it a rider, but it's a taxi, through one of the apps. When he arrived, it was a young man. When he arrived there at Chaka Place, one of the first things that I did was get in the vehicle, and he was immediately out of the gateway, outside the gate, and a black van blocked his way. Two individuals that I saw, but eventually I was told there were three of them, and I realized later in the vehicle, got out of the car. They dragged me out of the vehicle, and I resisted. I really did. It took them a while to put me into the car because I resisted as much as I can. They put me, after that, in the black van, and they were speeding away. I would like to point out that almost immediately there was a bus that tried to block their way. It was a City Hopper, I think that's what it's called, tried to block its way. It managed to swerve and to continue. They sped very fast, and they kept looking for my phone. When they finally found the phone that I was trying to conceal, they asked for my PIN number, which I was not able to provide to them, and they continuously, and that's when I realized that I was handcuffed, so they continuously tightened the handcuffs. They tried to choke me. They tried to put like a cloth, I don't know what it was. They tried to like make me not see, and finally they tied my eyes. But whenever I was giving them the wrong PIN, they would also cover my nose and my mouth so that they could intimidate me and tell me that I should give them the right one. I would like to note that almost at the beginning, when I kept saying, "Where are you taking me? Who are you?" they said that they're taking me to the police station and they're police and I should not be worried. I didn't believe them. I knew that it's not possible. So I told them that how long will it be to the police station? They would say soon, but they would continue still to try to restrain me. And one of the things that I also noted as well was that in that race that they were doing, they eventually were out of Nairobi. And I'm assuming that because of the bumps that I was feeling and the speed that they were going, it was not in a normal city road. After a while, they stopped, and then they kept doing that they were going for a while. They would stop, they would get out. One or two individuals would get out of the car. It seems that there was some form of conversation they were having, something was happening outside the vehicle. Then they would return into the vehicle, or that person would return in the vehicle and then continue. Eventually, there was one time when we stopped for a very long time. And during that very long stop, there seemed to be a longer time that took place. Everybody got out of the vehicle except one who was continuously restraining me. That person was also approached by one of them, of the other one, who whispered something, but they made sure I couldn't hear because they covered my head. They talked in whisper, and it was after that stop that finally we were driving, and then they stopped. They told me to get out of the vehicle, not look around once the blindfold is off, wait for the car to disappear, and then start walking, find a way, or a taxi or whatever it is to get home, which I did. It was quite a walk. It was dusk. It got dark very quickly. So I had to walk for quite a while before I could find two cars parked, and I assumed they were Uber. So I asked one of the driver to take me back to the apartment, which he did.
Would you perhaps estimate where you were dropped off?
That is a little bit difficult because it was very dark. Also, when I was in the vehicle, one of the things or one of the conditions they gave, they told me that I should not talk to anyone. At the beginning, when I started walking, I felt that they're following me, that like they're observing me from far. So I was very scared. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And when I got in the vehicle, I was silent throughout. So I realized a bit later that I was at Gong Road Carrefour. That's the first marker that was familiar to me. So I didn't say much to the driver because within a short time after that, she dropped me. But I had appealed that if that driver in any way remembers, then maybe he can come forward and tell me, where he found me or where I found him for that matter.
Yeah, you released the video after your release, obviously shaken but relieved. What was going on in your mind when you realized at least you were safe?
To be honest, I think the first time I actually, and I'm not ashamed to say that I cried, was when I got home. I called my husband, and my husband appeared with Faith Odhiambo and Amnesty International people. And I think that's the first time that the real sense of relief, I started crying. It was very overwhelming. Honestly, there were moments in the vehicle when I started just counting that if they manage to take me across the border, they'll never find me. In Tanzania, people who get abducted, very rare of them. Very rarely do they ever get found.
What role, if any, do you believe the authorities here locally played in this? Was there any hand, you believe, from local authorities as well as international authorities?
My feeling was, and this is because of the way they were behaving in certain stops where we were on the road and I felt that there were people around us, these were not people who were officially sanctioned. So I don't think that if it's authorities like us as a big institution, what I felt was there were individuals who were part of this. Probably for me, it was more of a rogue operation. Some of the individuals didn't seem to have a lot of information about me and wanted me to confirm things which I refused to confirm for them, like my name. They wanted to know my marital status and stuff like that, but I was not confirming to them. However, there was one individual who appeared to know more and was speaking to me in Swahili and calling me by my name, but I refused to respond, of course. My personal belief, and of course, that's more of a feeling I'm going on. I have a feeling this person could be he's probably from Tanzania and not Kenyan. And that is why my feeling is that this is mainly initiated from the Tanzanian side.
Yeah, you've been a fierce critic of the Tanzanian government not once. Do you think this has contributed to the occurrences of yesterday?
Of course, definitely it is related to my criticism, but also my activities in the sense that I have been very, very outspoken about the abductions. I have filed a number of statements with the UN work group on enforced disappearance. So I do know that I am a thorn in their side. And one of the other things that I think is very important to say is that a lot of people who have been outspoken online and have been within the borders have been intimidated and some disappeared. So I think there was that sense of frustration on their part that they couldn't get to me immediately. And this was one of the attempts of trying to reach me.
Yeah, you've spoken about the importance and the suppression of the freedom of expression in your country. Do you think that things are getting worse over time?
Definitely, it's getting worse. There was a time in 2020 under Magufuli when it was bad. Then it looked briefly under Samia Suluhu that it was getting better, but then we have gone back, if not to the same level, even worse than before. Yeah, looking then, Maria, at this whole scenario, you're from Tanzania. We did see the incident from neighboring Uganda with Kizza Besigye. What do you think this speaks about Kenya's role, quote unquote, if, as it were, and with the silence from authorities, no side has spoken yet? What do you think this speaks about Kenya being, quote unquote, a hive or a den of such activities, this not being the first incident? I think that primarily it's first of all important to note before I answer that question,
yes,
that Kenya has always been looked upon by those of us from East Africa as a safe haven, as a place where you will find a lot of support, rule of law, institutions that protect, and also who would work with human rights activists in order to ensure that they're safe in case you get into trouble in your own country. So I think that reputation is one of the reasons many of us have decided to set up business, to start our lives again in Kenya, and to feel safe. Unfortunately, my take has been that there are elements within the forces who might be the ones who are very eager to collude. So it's very important for the government of Kenya to ensure that that same reputation and safety that we all have been looking upon and admiring and actually living under continues. Those people who come across trying to abduct us and trying to harm us across the borders should not be given any leeway. There should be a very intensive crackdown on the borders to ensure that these kind of security exchanges don't happen. If there is any need, legally, whether it is to take us to court or to extradite, that can be done legally. And this is one thing that I know Kenya definitely has, which is the rule of law. And there's a whole procedure for that. So I think this is very important to maintain for the government of Kenya.
Yeah. As you went up, Maria, now that you've been released, what is your next step? Will you be, does this experience impact your activism, and what would be perhaps the future of activism in Kenya and in East Africa as a whole?
I think it has impacted definitely my activities, but in a positive way. I feel even more obliged and necessitated to act, to speak out. And that is one thing that I can promise, is that I'll speak out more and more and to make sure that light is shone on all the abductions, all the violations that are happening in Tanzania, and to ensure that we cannot be intimidated and to speak up. That speaking up, as long as I know I'm safe in Kenya, I will continue to do. But if it needs be, I'll find another place and I'll still continue speaking up. My hope is, because of the fact that we are East Africans and because of the way Kenyans are, who really inspire us always, I think that that spirit of citizen solidarity is going to continue. And I'm very confident that now there is a lot of people who have become aware of some of the activities of the Tanzanian government that they never knew about, which is going to actually impact positively any activism that I do.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Maria. We wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Indeed, that has been Maria Sarungi Tsehai. She is a Tanzanian activist who had been abducted yesterday but has been released, speaking to us right here on TV47. We are taking a short break. When we come back, we still have more. Please do stay with us.